It was Monday evening, and my wife and I were sitting at the kitchen table. I call her Sandy, and she had prepared a pretty typical meal. Sandy had added some fried cauliflower cheese to the skillet, which was boiling and beeping just the way I like it, especially with the pickles on the side and the leftover roast beef from last night. She brought me a pint of my favorite beer, and I thought to myself, a strong beer on a work night once in a while is no big deal. We've known each other for about 14 years now, but I could sense something was coming that I wouldn't like. Sure enough, it happened. Friday night, I'm going on a date with one of the guys from work, she said. And before you get all worked up, it's just dinner, no sex involved. Get that idea out of your head. I wasn't expecting that. Well, not exactly expecting it. Still, I kept calm on the outside, even though I was boiling inside. I needed something more exciting for myself, things had gotten too routine. Oh, I see where this is going. So now it's my fault that things are routine? I replied. You didn't seem to mind when I took you to the Red Lion for dinner and dancing last Saturday or when we won the pub quiz on Friday. You were thrilled about that bottle of champagne we won. Remember? That was us. I don't get why you're seeking something different now. Sandy looked at me. It's not like that. I just want something for myself. And like I said, there's no sex involved, it's just dinner. Who's this guy? When did you two decide to do this? I asked. It's Jonathan. He's been asking for weeks, but I always turned him down. Tonight, he asked again, and since he insisted it was just dinner, I finally said yes, she explained. I had a feeling it was him, her new friend Jonathan. She had mentioned him a few times months ago, but then she stopped. One day, when she forgot her lunch, I dropped by her office and saw him. Something was off. In the city, they had met a few times at work, but I didn't like it. I told her, I don't want you to leave, but I'm warning you. I don't trust him. And I don't believe you when you say there's no sex involved. Don't forget I've seen him. The next 2 days were tense. Wednesday, she came home late with a grocery bag, but I noticed 2 more handles sticking out. She'd hidden one bag inside another, keeping something secret, and it didn't look good. While she cooked dinner, I went to take a shower and snuck a peek in the far corner of her closet. There it was, a sexy satin blue dress and a new pair of stockings. I didn't dare take them out to avoid revealing that I'd found them. What if it was a surprise for me? Doubtful, of course. Thursday morning, I left for work at the usual time but called in sick. I had a lot to prepare. Thursday night was bitterly cold, and she told me they'd be leaving early on Friday, so by the time I got home, she'd already be gone. She clearly didn't want me to see her wearing that new dress. I hadn't expected this, so I had to give my speech sooner than planned. Where are you going for dinner? I asked. I'm not telling you, she said. You'll show up and ruin it. You need to think about this, what you're doing. Going on a date with another man, not your husband, and refusing to tell me where. I won't tolerate this. If you walk out that door, I'll throw you out on the street. She looked shocked. You wouldn't. You love me. I do love you. But do you really want to test that? I asked. She looked down, and I continued, and I assume your company has some kind of morality policy. I'll find out. No, don't, she begged. I'd get fired. You wouldn't risk that, would you? If you go out with him, I won't be here when you come back, whether there's sex or not, I finished. It seemed to rattle her, but still, the bed felt even colder that night. The next morning, I left early to avoid facing her. I got home early and saw her car already parked. Quietly, I went inside. After waiting 15 minutes, I went upstairs and found her standing in a satin dress, looking absolutely stunning. So that's why you didn't want me to see the new dress. I see, I said, picking up the empty stocking package on the bed. She looked embarrassed. So you're not having sex with him, but you're dressing like this for dinner? I was tempted to use a harsher word, but for now, I held back. The moment hadn't passed yet. When we went dancing at the Red Lion, I wore a blouse, a skirt, and tights. I didn't even have stockings, she explained. Jonathan bought them. And what about that dress? I asked. Who paid for it? I did, from our joint account. Of course you did, I muttered. No, really, I did. No, we paid for it. And since I contribute most of the money to that account, you're using my money to dress up for your date, I said, barely containing my frustration. He's not my boyfriend, she argued. Then why are you dating him? I want something different, something exciting. The doorbell rang. I went downstairs, and she followed. It was Jonathan. He seemed surprised to see me. I gave her an ultimatum. If you walk out that door, we're done. No, she said, you love me. It won't happen. Jonathan smiled and held out his hand. Sandy, it's time to go, he said. She hesitated, but then stepped out the door. That's when I pulled out an envelope with divorce papers from my back pocket. I removed my wedding ring, dropped it inside, and sealed the envelope. Holding it out to her, I waited. She didn't take it. Jonathan stood there, still with his hand out, so I handed the envelope to him instead. When you're done having sex, give this to her, I said. I walked to the side of the house, grabbed the for sale sign that had been waiting there since I'd contacted the real estate agents, and stuck it in the yard. Sandra just stood there, stunned, leaning against the doorframe. I walked back inside, grabbed my backpack and suitcase, threw them in the back seat of my car, and turned to her. I'll be back tomorrow to get the rest of my things. Make sure Jonathan isn't here. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Now you can date and sleep with whoever you want. Jonathan tried to intervene. You can't talk to her like that. Oh, how cute, I said. Good thing the cameras are recording everything. I stepped forward and kneed him in the stomach as hard as I could. He doubled over and started vomiting. Sandra was still crying, looking up at me from the floor. Don't mess with me. I'll see you tomorrow, I said before leaving. I drove to my parents' house, where they were waiting for me. On Saturday, I went to gather the rest of my belongings. Jonathan wasn't there, and Sandy begged me to stay. I told her, if you're dressing up like that to go out with co-workers, it shows you don't respect me. It's only a matter of time before you cross a line, and I'm not waiting around for that to happen. I had a good offer on the house, so I offered to help her find a place to live and promised she'd get half. Without looking back, I packed up everything I wanted and left to start my new life. What's your opinion on this story? Thanks for joining us, where revenge is served piping hot. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next juicy tale, and remember, if you're under 18, these stories aren't for the faint-hearted.